Many players consider the Echovald Wilds as the Tangled Depths of Ender Dragons, as in it can be a pretty confusing map to navigate through with a ton of different areas that you can explore. Some people can definitely get frustrated or confused going through this map as they are trying to find a specific location, but many others love this because it is such a varied and interesting map with a ton of different secrets, beautiful locations, and fun details hidden within. And today, I want to go across the entire map and highlight my top 10 favorite things that we can find throughout it. So let's get started. In the number 10 spot is the Gang War of Echovald meta. This is the main meta in Echovald Wilds, which will take you all across the map to complete a variety of events. While Cantha features a variety of gangs, the two most prominent ones that you interact with are the Jade Brotherhood, who really embrace technology, as well as the Speakers, who really embrace nature. While these two don't usually fight too often, the rising tensions between the two begin to escalate as they fight each other. The Kestrels, with the help of player characters, work to defend the innocent civilians across the map while fighting back against the two gangs. The finale of this entire meta is the prototype XJ1 boss, who is a really cool looking boss, and the fight against it is also decently fun. I like this meta because it does take you all around Echovald and lets you learn more about the various people within, particularly the Jade Brotherhood and the Speakers, where I find these two groups, alongside the Kestrels and others, to be decently interesting. As far as the events in the meta go, it's pretty solid and average. It feels like a classic meta, but it does have a really cool boss fight. Some people may dislike certain events found within the meta, but I personally like them, and at times you often have choices for which events you personally want to do as people spread out across the map. While it's not my favorite meta in Guild Wars 2, it is still pretty good and deserves a spot on this list. In the number 9 spot is Mori Village. This is a prominent location that you can find in the southeastern corner of the map. A large Tengu village that serves as a large outpost for the aforementioned Kestrels, an organization primarily made up of Tengu and humans who work to defend the Echovald Wilds and the civilians within. They were originally formed to help the Tengu hide from the Ministry of Purity as Cantha became a xenophobic state, but as the political landscape across the continent has changed in the last couple of centuries, the Tengu no longer have to hide from the Ministry of Purity, but there are still many threats that the Kestrels are helping against. As someone who loves the Tengu, it is great to see a large Tengu village and to be able to explore more of Tengu culture. A prominent part of this area is the task that takes place here, where there are a lot of different things you can do to complete the task, and it is generally an enjoyable experience for me. I love walking around this area because it is super interesting, very beautiful, and full of details. There are also some events that take place around here which are fun, especially the archery event itself. One big theme of this location is that it is supposed to be partially hidden from the rest of the Echovald Wilds, and I think it did that job beautifully. I love the transition from Mori Village to the areas around it, especially with how you can drive your skiff through the waters of Lake Lutgardis and dock at the village. It's just a beautiful area with some great vibes. In the number 8 spot is the Forever Tree. Going back to the original Guild Wars, we see these incredibly powerful trees that are super important for the Kurziks, where Kurziks could transform into juggernauts and be bound to a forever tree, essentially granting them immortality as long as the tree lives. And in the original Guild Wars, we see a prominent one located at the Eternal Grove, which you defend during the mission, and it looks very pretty. During the time between Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, the Ministry of Purity went across the Echovald Forest and burned most of the forever trees. Many juggernauts, as well as tree singers in charge of protecting the tree itself, were struck down in combat and burned. And despite the efforts of these protectors, most of the forever trees were burned, except for one. Located in Ferndale, you can find the last known forever tree to exist and find it to be a beautiful location. There's a Zavari located here helping protect the tree, which I think is incredible because you also see a warden here who are the plant-like protectors of the Echovald Forest, a race who are very, very similar to the Zavari in many ways. But it's fun to come across an incredible location, experience a very fun story, and see the tree in full bloom should it be successfully defended. In the number 7 spot are the Lake Lutgardis tunnels. Lake Lutgardis is a beautiful area that I was talking about earlier, and I love just driving your skiff all around here. But a very cool part of this area are 2 different tunnels that you can find in 2 different parts of the lake. One is in the northern end, and it leads to a tunnel with an entrance covered by some roots. I love navigating through here because it's just so beautiful looking. You got a dock at the end of the tunnel that you can hop out of your skiff on and continue onwards. You then have a second tunnel in the southwestern end of the lake, which by itself is less exciting. It's a bit smaller and less detailed compared to the others. But if you dive into the water, you can find this opening that leads into an absolutely incredible looking area that has a hero point. I love this secret little hidden corner of the map, which does serve a purpose with the hero point, but it's just a gorgeous little area that I love a lot. In the number 6 spot is House zu Heltzer. The zu Heltzers are one of the oldest and largest Kurzic families found in the Echovald forest. They play a major role in the lore and story of Cantha, and there are many prominent characters who are from this house. In the original Guild Wars, you interact with them a lot throughout your travels in the Echovald forest, and you even go to their seat of power at House zu Heltzer during the factions campaign. In Guild Wars 2, they are still a relatively prominent family, but have definitely lost a lot of power. Detective Rama, a major character during the End of Dragons expansion, is a descendant of the zu Heltzers, but in the Echovald Wilds, you travel to a variety of areas directly connected to this family, including House zu Heltzer. Which I just want to take a moment to shout out all of the areas we see in the Echovald Wilds in Guild Wars 2, which we also explored during the original Guild Wars. I love this theme in Guild Wars 2 where we get to compare different areas 250 years apart from each other, but House zu Heltzer as a whole is a really beautiful area, and there is some fun stuff that goes on around here. One particularly fun detail that I love a lot is the cultural naming convention we see with House zu Heltzer. For example, individuals of this house are their name zu Heltzer, like the prominent Countess Danica zu Heltzer, but we see this convention continue to locations as well, like House zu Heltzer or Memorial zu Heltzer, which an absolutely incredible detail connected to this is how the waypoint at House zu Heltzer is named Waypoint zu Heltzer, and because of this waypoint ends up being one of the most unique waypoints in all of Guild Wars 2. In the number 5 spot is the Jade Gate. Every map in Guild Wars 2 has at least one entrance to another map that you can travel through to get from one map to another, and out of all of them, the entrance from Echovald Wilds to Dragon's End is my favorite in the entire game. The location known as the Jade Gate is just absolutely gorgeous. I love the entire aesthetic of this area with the massive bridge that looks incredible, leading to a massive structure that is the gate itself. I love the cherry blossom trees around here, the vines hanging from the gate, and all the foliage around here. I love the other buildings on either side of the gate. I love the jade statues that are lining the sides of the bridge. I love the canyon underneath the bridge. I just love this entire area. It is an absolutely beautiful area and is a phenomenal location to serve as an entrance to another zone. In the number 4 spot is the Vasburg Armory. This is one of the mini dungeons located in the Echovald Wilds, and is actually located down the end of the northern Lake Lutgardis tunnel I was talking about earlier. You have a fun storyline here where you can explore an ancient Kurzic armory of the Vasburg house, which we actually have a location called this in the original Guild Wars, but it was located in a different location, which can easily be explained that the Vasburgs would have multiple armories. The mini dungeon as a whole is pretty simple. You have 2 rooms filled with traps that will turn on and off, and you simply have to get across them without getting hit by the traps, or you will likely die. In the second room, you also have some enemies that you'll have to deal with as you navigate through the traps, and in between the 2 rooms is a tiny little jumping area that requires you to utilize your jumping puzzle skills, but is an incredibly easy area. Towards the end, there's also a runestone keymaster that you can kill in order to complete the mini dungeon and get to the final room with the victory chest. I just love the vibes and the experience of this area a lot, since I do enjoy a solid mini dungeon in Guild Wars 2. In the number 3 spot is maybe a bit of a controversial one, but it is the other mini dungeon in this map known as Valdhertz Crypts. This is a really cool area that highlights a lot of the different great Kurzic houses. Throughout this mini dungeon, you have a ton of events and different puzzles you have to work through to get towards the end, which I do enjoy all the different puzzles through here, and I genuinely have a really fun time completing this mini dungeon. The 2 downsides of this location is how it is in the open world, so if somebody has already started it and you want the full experience, you will have to wait for it to reset, but you can also just run to where the other players are at in the mini dungeon and continue from there. But the part of this mini dungeon that is more controversial is how it is often buggy, and you can't complete it, which turns a lot of people away from it. Fortunately for me, however, I've never had too many issues with that. Similar to the Vasburg Armory, this is just a fantastic piece of content. I love mini dungeons in Guild Wars 2 because it feels like you are progressing through a piece of instance content, but it is in the open world and you can often do it by yourself, where the Valdhertz Crypt in particular is one of my favorite in all of Guild Wars 2 because it is a very content dense area with all the different puzzles, challenges, and the overarching story. This place serves as the last refuge and the last stand for the dredge and Kurziks of the Echovald Forest against the Ministry of Purity, where you can learn a lot about that harrowing story as you progress through this place. And the number 2 spot is the Lake Lutgardis Waterfalls. Continuing back to Lake Lutgardis, you have some absolutely incredible waterfalls that are pouring into this map. Lake Lutgardis, as I've already mentioned a couple of times, is already a very gorgeous area, but a prominent feature of the Echovald Forest is how massive the trees are here. If you're on the water and you look up, you can see the trees going way up in the distance. And at Lake Lutgardis in particular, the mountains around here are also going super high up into the sky, where there are rivers and whatnot up in the mountains that are pouring down the cliff face and into this lake. Towards the eastern end, you have a collection of smaller waterfalls, which are just incredible to look at, but towards the western end of the lake, you have a pair of absolutely massive waterfalls that are just dumping water into this lake. These 2 waterfalls are magnificent and are one of the most beautiful sights in all of Guild Wars 2. But now for the number 1 spot, for my favorite thing in all of the Echovald Wilds, and it just has to go to St. Anjeka's Shrine. Just southeast of Mori Village, west of Ferndale, you can find this incredible tunnel with a couple of roots and a bunch of vines in front of the entrance. The tunnel itself feels relatively random and it is kind of just in the middle of nowhere, but it leads to an incredible point of interest. As you head down into this tunnel, you can find this incredible Kurzik ruin that is very similar to others you can find around the map. But you may notice that one of the stained glass windows here is broken, and you may have noticed some ghosts which are coming down the tunnel into these ruins and through the broken window. Should you decide to go through this tiny little tunnel, which you absolutely should, you come out into another massive chamber. This area itself is really cool, as you can see some scaffolding going up towards the ruin you just came from and down towards some other ruins. I think this location in particular does a very good job at highlighting the most incredible part of the Echovald Wilds, and that is just how intricate and dense this map is. There are a ton of ruins all around this map at different elevations, and this location is the best of them. But out of everything, the best part of this entire area is as you navigate down the second set of ruins here and into this massive grotto. You can find the point of interest, another chest, and one of the most beautiful locations in all of Guild Wars 2. The water here with the roots and all the vegetation is beautiful. Looking back towards the ruins provides you with an incredible sight, but the most prominent feature here has to be the massive glowing stained glass window. This in particular is incredible looking, and everything combined together just makes this location my favorite thing in all of the Echovald Wilds. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. The Echovald Wilds is an incredible map that is filled with so many different areas. There's a lot that I love about this map, and I only highlighted my favorites in this video. If there's anything you particularly like, feel free to share it down in the comments, because players should go and explore everything in this beautiful map. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.